Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I am here with Jessica I almost said McLean, which is not, that's so not right. What, is it McLaren? Is that how you say it? McLaren?
McLaren.
McLaren. Okay. I can't say it as elegantly as you can. Don't feel bad, Jessica. I screw up everybody's last name. And it's really sad because I've known you for 2-3 years now. And plus, you've been on the podcast before. So it's really ridiculous that I don't know how to pronounce your last name. But everybody in my audience at this point knows I suck at last names. So, Jessica, how's it going?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So good to connect and so good to be doing a second podcast, especially after that first one went viral over here in the UK. So it's fun.
Yeah. So that makes me so excited that it actually, by the way, can you just tell a quick story really quick just to feed my own ego as to how you found out how somebody heard your story or heard our podcast? Was it on a radio station or something?
Yeah, so it was on a radio station in England, UK, and I was still in school at this time. And my head teacher had come in to say to me, Jess, you've ruffled a few feathers in this building. And I said, well, why is that? And he says, because you were on the radio last night. And I said, no, definitely wasn't me, wasn't on the radio last night. And then somebody sent me the link to this radio interview, but it turned out that your podcast had been played on an English radio station and had just went viral. So it was pretty cool. Pretty
That's
cool.
so,
Surprised both you
oh,
and me.
that was I love that. That's such a good story. So, Jessica, let's dive right in. So, the last time we talked, if I'm not mistaken, you were working. Obviously, you're working with children because you were working at the school. You're the assistant. You were the principal, principal, which
Principal teacher.
principal teacher. Okay, and now you've moved away from that, and now you're running your own coaching practice full time. Correct?
Exactly. So what happened was I was making huge waves in education, exactly what we spoke about on that last podcast. But what I very quickly realized was that I couldn't make the change. I couldn't impact the number of people that I wanted to impact by being in the classroom. And so I really quickly learned that in order to really, truly create early intervention, I had to work with the adults around the children. So the parents, the teachers. And so I decided to move away from the classroom and set up my own business. So I have my own business. Basically, I'm a family and relationships coach and an expert community builder. I build global communities which really support people to achieve elevated levels of success. And as I said, I do that through my personal business, but also through my company, which is called Next Level Life, with my business partner, Rachel.
That is absolutely, I love that. I think that's so amazing. Isn't it beautiful to know that? And when I say beautiful, like the concept of being an entrepreneur is very much, it is a lot prettier than actually being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of hoops we have to jump through that most folks don't even realize. Most people, I think, believe that by owning a business you go and come as you please, you make loads of money, and you get to do whatever you want to do, and that's just really not it. I mean, for some folks I'm sure that's the case, but at the end of the day, anybody that's super successful has to continue to work, right? Ed Milet, Andy Frisello, we're both in Arte. We both know them very well, and we both know that they work like insane hours. And but from the outside looking in, if you look at their Instagram life, right, it looks like that they're just like you and I, but they're super rich. But that's
Yeah,
just not the
that's it.
case.
That's it. And people look at Instagram and look at our social media and our websites and all of these different things. And all they often see is the traveling around the world, having meetings with influential people, working with the children in different countries. But what they don't see is everything that goes on behind the scenes. And you're right, it is something that you're embroiled in many more hours than you might be if you were working a 9 to 5. But the difference is you're doing it for yourself, you're doing something that you love. And if it's truly aligned with your core values, then it doesn't really feel like hard work, like grind in the typical
That's so
sense.
I agree. And it's interesting because, I have much longer days now than I did when I was working for somebody.
Mm.
But the fulfillment that the fulfillment that I get from working for myself is significantly more than I ever got working for somebody else. And I got to tell you, I, if it's up to me, I will never work for anybody else
Mm.
personally.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. When I left school, and we spoke about my story in the last episode that we recorded. When I left school as a single parent with 2 children, everyone was very quick to judge or celebrate. And the ones that judged, the questions were, why would you leave the security of a job in education? Why would you give up paid holidays? Why would you give up a pension? But again, and people can listen to that other episode that we recorded. My limiting belief used to be that I was held back by the fact that I had children. And when I went to that Tony Robbins event, like we discussed, I quickly realized that I have to do everything I can to inspire my children, to inspire other parents that they can do it too, that actually there's limitless potential available to us all. And remaining employed by somebody else was not creating my dream life, my family's dream life. It was actually creating somebody else's. And so taking ownership of that was huge, but people don't see what truly goes on. And so recently, as we spoke about, Corey, Rachel, my business partner, and I embarked on a trip to Costa Rica and to America. I left the kids at home for a month during a global pandemic when it's illegal to leave our front doors. We embarked on this big journey. And again, lots of people were asking me, how could you leave your children at home? How could you put other people's health at risk? And the reality was, we were allowed to travel because it was essential business travel. My kids were inspired and celebrating what I was doing because they know, there's a lot more to this global situation than is in front of us. And to teach the world, what is truly possible, and how taking a quantum leap is the catalyst to living that life of elevated success.
Absolutely. So I do have a question. What month was it that you went and did this?
It was January 12th, we left the UK, and then I returned home last week.
Oh, so you just got back from this month-long trip.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So the reason I ask is because I too went, I guess it was in March or April, probably April and maybe May or June, somewhere in that vicinity is when I went and did my two different journeys of
Mm.
last year. And it was in the middle of the pandemic. It was, in fact, ironically, I was the first group back to the place that I went um, during the pandemic. They had been closed down, right? Like everybody. And when the first week they opened back up, I was there because I was supposed to go the week that they shut everything down. And I was prepared, ready to go, and then everything shut down. So I was very fortunate in that respect because first of all, there was only 10 people there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing, and I mean, I think I've shared this with you before, but what was interesting about this journey that I went on, the first one, is I tried to control the experience. And what I mean by that is I had expectations when I went there. I had expectations of the outcome. And the reality is that's something you just can't control. Like
Yeah.
And so the second time I went, I interviewed the medical director at the facility that I went. And the first interview that we did, very similar to how you and I are talking, except for we were in person, the card ran out on the camera. So I had to do the whole interview over. I was furious. But I got to tell you, that was the spirit or the universe or mother, whatever you want to call it, saying to me, you need to listen this time because you didn't get it the first time. And let me explain what I mean by that. He asked me during the middle of the interview, he said, do you have control issues? I said, well, probably. And the reason he asked me that is because I tried to control my first journey. And fortunately, by having that conversation with him, not once, but twice, it took that second time for me to open my brain up and say, oh, he's trying to say something to me. And so fortunately, I listened, and that's when the magic happened. Was after that time when he said to me, just let go. Let the medicine do the work and don't try to fight it.
Yeah.
And so I did exactly what he said, and I got exactly what he said I would get, which is exactly what I needed, which was I understand that for the longest time my value was reduced significantly, not by others, but by me. I didn't value myself. And the second thing that I also learned was that I need to be more patient. Now, that wasn't a shocker, but but I got to tell you, when the value portion came up in my stomach, Jessica, I knew what the spirit was trying to say to me, but I pushed it to the side because I didn't want to face it.
Yeah.
And very shortly after that, everything opened up for me. Everything happened, right? And that was the beautiful part of the journey.
It's all about surrender, right? It's
It
all
really
about
is.
surrender. And that's the hardest thing, it seems, for us as humans to be able to do. And that is the whole human race. Surrender is something that we struggle with 100%. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the masks, right? I despise the masks. I hate it because I don't like being told what to do. Period. By anybody, by you, by my wife. I just don't want to be controlled.
Yeah.
And that has probably been my biggest issue with 2020 is I felt like I was in this bubble that I couldn't get out of because of the pandemic, so to speak. And so I have my feelings on that. We don't have to get into that today because I'll go off on a rant and people probably don't need to hear that because if you've listened to my podcast before, you know where I stand on this whole thing. So where did you go exactly?
So we left the UK, COVID tested with all of our documentation. So we flew from London via Amsterdam because it's the only place that we were allowed to transit through to Costa Rica. Now, our intention was to come to America. We were coming to America specifically for a conference, but having been in the UK, we had to be out with the UK for 2 weeks before the American government would allow us to enter the country. So what we did was we went to Costa Rica as you Americans call it, and we went to a retreat called Rhythmia. So we went to Rhythmia and it was so exciting. It was a deep dive into our own, mine and Rachel's, personal development, spiritual growth, route to transcendence, whatever you want to call it. And not only did we do yoga, meditation, colonic irrigation, vegan diets, no alcohol, but of course we worked with the shaman and we did 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. So it was so interesting. I had no expectations. I've never done psychedelics before. I really did not know what to expect. We chose Rhythmia because it is the #1 rated resort in the world. It is the #1 clinic because it has the full medical clinic on site. It's a licensed plant medicine retreat, the first in the world. And well, it was sold as a high-end retreat, so a bit of sunbathing and all of that was good for the soul. So we went there, no expectations, and it's safe to say it's completely changed my life. It's completely changed my life. I'm a different person.
Yeah, I get it. And you know what's crazy? It's the hardest thing to explain to someone
Mm.
of what happened, what the transformation was. But at the end of the day, the end result was my life has changed, like yours. Like your life has changed because of this experience. And so for that reason, if anybody that's listening, I would encourage you to delve into this and look at it and see if it's something that you feel like it's something that maybe you would need to explore. Because I will tell you, I'm it's nerve wracking.
Mm.
It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, if you go into it, like you said, Jessica, with an open mind, you will come out of the other side a different person. And I don't mean in a negative way. I mean, you're going to be able to see things that other people can't see. And I don't mean like some woo woo psychic stuff, but it's almost like that, honestly. Like
Yeah.
there, it's interesting. The last 2 nights, I've been able almost to, and it's weird, but it's like I've been able to disassociate myself from whatever the situation is, and I can look at it from a 30,000-foot view. We
Mm.
hear 30,000-foot view, but I literally have been able to like separate myself. I don't know how to explain it. It's hard to explain. But anyway, so what was your experience? What would you say were the #1 and #2 things that changed in your life after this?
I mean, it's a really good question. So we had went there and, knowing ourselves really well, huge intentions about what we wanted to achieve there, unshakable. We can travel the world in a global pandemic. We already, live day to day with our quantum strategy. We're really good at surrender, but we went there to reach a higher level of consciousness. Now, what's really interesting is you've said that I went there with no expectations. And because I did, the first night was great. I was the first person up at the shaman. I was like, give me a second cup, give me a third cup, and had a great time. And the first night was quite slow. I was given almost like a movie reel of all of my past experiences, but just a quick run through, a bit of a preview to what was to come the rest of the week. Night 2 was a completely different experience. I've never felt as much pain in my life, as in emotional pain. I have never felt as much euphoria in my life, but it was an absolute journey. And one thing that I've realized about ayahuasca is that it's not fun. There's definitely fun moments within an ayahuasca journey, but it's work. It's absolute work. It's work on our souls. It's work on everything that we've suppressed in the past, even the things that we can't remember suppressing. The third night, I was over it. I was like, I am not having any more of this. I'm not interested. And I don't know if you've been to Rhythmia. Have you been to Rhythmia,
I
Corey?
have not. No, I have not.
A huge part of Rhythmia is there's always live music, and there's, it's crazy. There's 50 people in the room. There's all this live music. There's all this different atmosphere going on. You can go outside, you can stay in the Maloka, whatever you want to do. But on the Wednesday night, it felt like a party. And I was refusing the whole thing. I was hiding under a blanket. I was refusing to watch anybody dance. And I didn't even go for a second cup of medicine or anything at all. But our fourth ceremony was a 12-hour ceremony. So it was a 12-hour ceremony with Colombian shaman. And what kept going through my head was, the more you drink, the better results you're going to have. Jessica, you cannot change the world if you cannot even get yourself up there and drink one shot of ayahuasca. So I really did. The biggest takeaways for me were that we as humans don't often take time to feel our emotions. Now, within the work that I do, one of the steps within our quantum strategy is do something that scares you every single day. Do something that scares you every single day. And I had a huge realization that for 95% of the population, the thing that scares them every day is feeling their emotions. So feeling was huge. Breath work was huge. I didn't ever understand how powerful breath work was until I'd been to breath work classes there. And really to love myself for myself and not for the work that I do for other people. So that was a big learning for me as well. But all
Yeah.
about feeling, the power of feeling our emotions, and how, especially, you know, as parents, we are very quick to shut our children's feelings down. And so coming home and working with my own children, but also, you know, in the family coaching space, my advice has been elevated like never before, internally and externally.
It's almost like the words, the best way I can describe it, it's almost like the words flow out of your mouth and you're not even sure. Sometimes for me, I'm not even sure how they got there.
Yeah.
I'm like, where the hell did that come from?
Mm.
And I have to realize that it was there all along. I just didn't recognize it.
Mm.
So I think that's really interesting. Is that what's the guy's name? The He was a bodybuilder.
Dorian.
Yeah, Dorian.
Dorian
Now,
Yates.
is that his place?
No, I think he went to Saltaris, which is
He
another place in Costa Rica. Yeah, I think he went to Saltaris, which is where Brian Rose went as well, which is a smaller setting.
So let's talk about Brian Rose for a second. So
Yeah.
Brian is, honest to God, Brian is the reason that I got turned on to this because I watched his documentary, and he really, what I think impresses me the most about Brian, and I don't know that if you have feelings one way or the other towards Brian, but from what I know about him, which is not a whole lot, um, but what I can tell is I believe that he is a guy that pulled himself away from the rat race of Wall Street. I don't know if it was Wall Street, but it was something very similar.
Mm.
And just divorced himself from all of the day to day and went and took this retreat, and it set him on a totally different path. And I wanted that. I
Yeah.
wanted something different. Maybe I wanted to feel differently. Maybe I wanted to see it. I don't know what it was, but his story was spectacular.
Yeah, so that was that documentary. So it was released about a year ago. So that was one of my friends is friends with Brian Rose and the team, and he'd been to the premiere in London and then went to Saltaris, came back and told me about it. And a week later we went to Rhythmia. But that was Brian Rose's second time doing ayahuasca, and he didn't want to go. He really heavily resisted that second time, because you know what it's like when you're there, you purge, you feel it's not fun, it's absolute deep diving, learning and growing. And so I know that he was terrified to go and have that experience again. So at the time of him going, he's obviously influential in London, he's heavily into politics, and I know on his return that what he felt was a completely different sense of duty to the citizens of London. And so his mission was stronger. He approached it from a different way, you know, away from the ego and from this real heartfelt urge to create change. And it's been really interesting lately because in the UK, we are in complete lockdown. We're not allowed to leave our houses unless we're going to the supermarket or unless you're an essential worker. You know, children that aren't at school, you're not allowed to do anything. So he very recently, because our elections, he's running for Mayor of London at the moment, our elections in May. And so he's been out in his COVID safe bus. He set up a digital station within it. So he goes to each borough of London and communicates with people through his social media channels, but from within the bus so that he's in proximity to them and still doing the traditional rounds. But while he was doing that just a few weeks ago, when we were in America, actually, he was arrested. He was arrested. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think just 2 days ago, he published on his social media the documentation from the police with the reason that he was arrested. And actually, none of it was sensical. So he went straight back out on the road and is doing it again.
What did he get arrested for?
Because they said that he was breaking COVID rules. Now, if you use, don't quote me 100% on this, but I think the rules are, if you're campaigning, you can campaign using your team. So as long as they're employed by you, they can deliver the leaflets, they can do, you know, all of the jobs that are part of the campaign. But what he'd done was he'd used a team of volunteers. Now, because they were volunteers, not employees, that was where he was crossing the line in terms of what was legally allowed and what's not.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But it's worked in his favor. He's had all of this additional media attention. He's, you know, created a bigger message around what he's doing and the global situation. And yeah, it's worked in his favor, as these things always do. Just with my trip, just with Brian Rose, just with what you do on a daily basis, some people love it and some people are really uncomfortable and challenged by it. Either way, you're creating impact.
That's right. And you know, and I hope, you know, everybody listening to this, I hope that you really, really soaked in what she just said, because it was so important. You're not for everybody, and I'm not for everybody. And guess what? I'm going to piss some people off, and I'm also going to make some people happy, and that's okay. So you know, I think a lot of times we try to be the person for everybody, and it just doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. And at the end of the day, you're going to upset somebody, and I don't care who you are or what you do. That's just a fact of life. And the sooner people can recognize that, I think we'll be in a better spot, you know, because it's been a hard lesson for me to learn, because, you know, growing up, I was somewhat of a people pleaser, and it just doesn't work. You can't please everybody, and you can't you're always going to have somebody that's upset with you, always.
And you can also keep a facade, you know, for so long. Your authentic self comes out eventually, and then again, you're open to criticism. So, and I think that was the ayahuasca journey as well. What, you know, as with all self-development, and actually why people are so interested in self-development right now, is we've had so much time with ourselves, me, myself, and I, that we've all been forced to look inwards. We've all been forced to deep dive into what is truly us, what truly serves us. We did that on another level using ayahuasca, you know, absolutely stripped ourselves right back to our souls, essentially. And that's the core of personal development. The truth is that when we live authentically as our true selves at soul level, and when we live in alignment with our core values, our true mission, purpose, and passion in life, then that is when we have success. But it's when we're putting on this facade or putting energy into something that doesn't serve us that we don't see the results. And ultimately, Corey, that's why you and I coach, and that's why we're successful, because we really truly have done the inner work. And one thing people say about ayahuasca is that it supports you to be unbotherable. Unbotherable. And I think working within this space, we have to be unbotherable.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I think is important for everybody listening, if you think that going on an ayahuasca journey is the work, you're dead ass wrong.
Mm.
The work really happens, at least for me, and you can share about your experience, but for me, it was the week after. It was the week I got back. It was getting on the airplane and having to put a mask on, which I despise, and a kid screaming, crying beside of me the whole way home. And I was like, I'm going to lose my mind because reality set in real quick. And now, the one before that, the time before that, that I went and did my journey, I drove. So I didn't have to deal with anybody. And I came home and I took the week and I just integrated back into society, so to speak. And that integration is a key portion of doing ayahuasca. It's so important because if you don't integrate the right way, I believe things can go sideways. And that's really where the work is being done. Would you agree, Jessica?
Yeah, 100%. So they told us that integration can happen for 21 days up to 9 months, if not longer. But again, it's a choice, isn't it? And everything in life, we've got a choice. We can take what we've learned and we can use it, or we can ignore it. And again, whichever direction we choose. One of my favorite quotes is that an insight, so when we catch an insight and we propel it with action, well, that's what creates freedom. And you're so right. We did exactly the same thing. So we did the retreat in Costa Rica. We actually stayed in Costa Rica for an additional week just to integrate, take some time to process everything that we'd learned. Then we came to Miami for our business conference and we were excited and we were in this heightened state and we were like, yep, this is the new us out in the world, ready to, elevate in life and in business. And then I got to a point about a week later. So I'd been in Miami for around 8 days, I think. And all of a sudden, I just made the decision like that I had to come home to Scotland, because I had to come home and see whether I was going to still be in that elevated state, integrating everything in real life as I had been whilst I was out of my real life situation. So I came home and I feel differently. I was thinking about selling my house before I left. I came home and realized that I'm not attached to my house on any level. The kids, we were having great conversations, as we always do, but they were next level conversations. And then I was on the phone to a friend and he said to me, how is everything? How's everything at home? I said, it's brilliant. I'm completely unbotherable. And at that moment, my front door opened, my son came in, ran up the stairs, and I shouted to him, have you taken your shoes off? And then I was like killing myself laughing. I'm like, I'm still botherable. I'm still botherable. But what was really interesting, a friend who'd been in Costa Rica with us today said that he realized that he was exactly the same person, but for the first time ever, he was truly, authentically himself. He knew himself more than he'd ever known himself before. And I
I
thought
love,
that was
yeah, I love
that was
that.
a good insight. Yeah, really
It
good.
really is. And, I saw some amazing transformations while I was there. And I'll give you a quick example. One of the guys there, he turns out he's gay. I actually had no idea. And his dad was there, and his sister was there. And he came out
Mm.
right after that first experience. And he said, I just don't understand why I've been fighting this for so long. And it was really cool to see, to be honest with you. And he and his dad actually bonded um, at a level like they had never bonded before. And it
Mm.
was just, I found it so fascinating. Yeah, it's amazing the experiences that can come out of using psychedelics, whether it be ayahuasca or LSD or mushrooms or whatever. Um, those, if you do it the right way and you do it usually under supervision, right? Look, you're not going to want to take any of these things and go out and party. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about taking these plant medicines and using them for a deeper level of spirituality, a deeper level of consciousness, or better yet, maybe even opening up the a level of consciousness. And it absolutely does that. And it's been a game changer for me. I got to tell you.
Yeah, another huge lesson from the experience, the whole experience, and it's about so much more than the plant medicine, but you're right, the spiritual practices was live in the present moment, don't record the past, but create the future. That was a huge message that I got. Live in the present moment, and that life is truly a human experience to be enjoyed. You know, every opportunity, every challenge, it's all just part of our human experience, and just to celebrate every single aspect of it, because we've been put on this planet to learn, to grow, to evolve, but to really enjoy. That's what we're here for, to enjoy. And so that was a huge takeaway for me as well, and something that I've created a course around since I've come back is trade expectation for extraordinary. You know, don't live what society expects you to live. You know, you don't have to do a 9 to 5 job. You don't have to earn a certain level of income to be happy. You don't need to retire at a certain age. You know, work as many days as you want, live life how you want. You know, trade expectation for extraordinary. That's a
I
huge,
love that.
yeah.
I was watching something the other night, and I'm sure you're familiar with this gentleman. I can't remember where he's from, but his name is David Icke.
Hmm.
So I was watching this thing with David Icke, and he's an interesting guy. Let me just tell you. And I haven't watched the whole thing, so I can't really give you insight on how I really feel about all of it. But he said something really important. He said, he said, right now, this moment right now is all we have to worry about. He
Mm-hmm.
said, if you think about it, um, if you think about the past, that's the past. If you think about the future, that's the future. Now, what I'm saying, it sounds like common sense, but I don't think people really stop and think this is the only time in our lives that we'll ever experience this moment,
Mm-hmm.
right here, right now. It doesn't matter what happens tomorrow. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. It only matters what's happening right this second.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he's absolutely right. Like,
Yeah.
what in your point to living in the past, like when he said that, it's almost like you have to ask yourself, well, why would I ever look to the past for anything? Because it's gone. Like, it's over. It's done. You can't get it back. You can't change it. The future, however, I believe that you can manipulate the future with your mind. I believe that you can visualize what you're going to do in the future. Now, I don't know that you can carve it out perfectly, but I believe that you can um, influence the future
Mm-hmm.
with through visualization, meditation, and and I just believe that. But I do believe that, and but what I don't. But again, what I think is very interesting about what he said was it's right now. That's all you have to worry about. It's right here, right now, on whatever today is, February the 15th. Uh, in my time, it's 3:43, and for you, it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. But so I just thought it was really interesting because we think about go go go. We've got to do all these things, but really, we just have to be here right now.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, what I love about what you just said, Corey, was we can control the future, but that's only by embodying our future self in the present moment. So everything that we are doing right now in this exact moment is creating our future reality. And so you're right, we do have control over that, but our control lies within this present moment. And exactly, it was funny, I read that exact same quote today, which is really interesting. We're very aligned. We're always very aligned. But that's why it's so important that we encourage people to feel, because in order to be able to let the new in, we have to be able to let go. So heal and surrender the old. And when we feel our emotions, then we have a choice. We have a choice to surrender it, channel it, or heal it.
Agreed. Totally agree.
So important. So feeling things so that we're open in the present moment so that the new can come in. But absolutely every single thing we are doing in the present moment is creating our future reality.
Absolutely. And guess what? We all have decisions, right? And if you make a bad decision, there are consequences with that. And if you make a good decision, there's consequences for that.
Yeah.
And we've all made bad decisions in our lives. And at the end of the day, you know, sometimes you make really, really bad decisions, and sometimes we make really, really great decisions. And you got to be okay with that. But you got to know that it's your decision, right? Nobody forced us to do this podcast today. It was a decision. And I think it's important to remember that you have a decision. If you want to make a change in the world, that's a decision. If you don't want to do anything and not help anybody, that's also a decision. And guess what? To not make a decision is the decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's true. It's true. And the truth is that anybody can have anything. There is truly infinite potential available to us all. But you're right, it's our choice to be consistent, to be disciplined in our actions, and to have commitment to our goals or not. We always have a choice.
So true. Absolutely. So what was your week like after you well, let me ask you one other question first. So the first question would be, did you do the 4 ceremonies 4 days in a row?
Yeah, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah.
Okay, they were all at night.
Yes.
Okay, because where I went, we do one on a Friday night, we do another one Saturday morning, and then we do another one Saturday night.
Okay. Okay.
And for me, I really enjoy the daytime ceremony. I'm not sure why. I think I do know why actually. It's in this really cool, and I'm going to sound like I'm a hippie or something, but you're in this really cool like forest area with these weird trees. Weird meaning they grow in kind of odd shapes, or not odd shapes, but odd direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're in this kind of like a clubhouse, sort of. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're in this area that's not on, it's just so peaceful. There's leaves, it's green. It's almost like you're stepping into a safe place, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, when you stepped on property at this place, did you feel differently?
So I would say that I felt differently 4 to 6 weeks before I even went to Costa Rica. The minute that I'd made the decision and made the investment, the medicine started working within me 100%. So beforehand, we were meditating, visualizing, and Mother Aya was 100% coming through.
Love
100%.
that. Now, what
Yeah.
kind of dieta were you on?
So it was completely vegan, plant-based, no alcohol, no sugar. Yeah, completely clean, completely clean. For 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after.
Yeah, no meat, right, at all.
No meat. However, when we were there was always a fish option. So you were allowed fish, but you weren't allowed like garlic or certain spices, no sugar, all those things, no
Yeah, I think
coffee.
yes. So they eliminated the coffee, garlic, onion. red
Dairy.
meat,
Yeah.
dairy,
Yeah.
of course, alcohol, which I don't drink, prescription medications
Mm,
for the most part, not all of them, but basically all of them.
mm,
And I'll tell you, I had hurt my back years ago, and I had been taking pain medicine for years, not in an irresponsible way, just because that's what I needed to take for my back. But
mm,
after that experience, I didn't have the desire to take that medicine anymore.
mm.
Period.
Yeah, they say it helps a lot of people in that way. I didn't have any ailments or injuries or anything like that. However, I did have the very cool experience of receiving surgery. You know, lots of people talk about the surgery happening, and I had a whole surgery. I had a DNA recoding. At one point, I was told, shown, it was very visual for me, that I was an Amazon queen, and I was instructed to go to the shaman, and I had to say to him, and people think you're nuts if they've never had this type of experience, but I had to stand in front of the shaman with my hands on my hips and tell him to give me a special blessing in a language I didn't yet understand. And then all of the shaman came, and they're waving the feathers at me, and spitting the stuff in your
The
face. And
the holy water, or the was it holy, not holy water. It's some kind of water.
yeah, so we had a full-on ceremony where I was like initiated as this Amazon queen, and it was incredible. But then when I returned to my mattress, again, it sounds crazy if people haven't experienced it, but this is a call to go and look it up if it's something that interests you. So then I went back to my mattress after having this most euphoric experience, and then I hit the worst pain of my life. I experienced every ounce of pain I've been through in my life, and not just my own pain, but also the pain of people around me. It was huge. But again, feeling all of those moments, really feeling them, because I'd obviously suppressed them previously, then allowed my body to feel like it had been cracked open and ready for all of the new to filter in, which was exciting.
Yeah, so exciting. So, all right, so we're getting close to time, but I did want to ask you, Jessica, do you feel like you will be called back to the medicine?
Yeah, so we're going to go once a year as part of our business strategy. So we're going to go again next January, 100%. And at the moment, that terrifies me, because it's work. It's real work. It's real work. And I just don't know what else can possibly come up that hasn't yet.
It's interesting. That is a very interesting question, because it feels like, when you go through that experience, obviously you purge, like, I mean, like crazy, and you're right, it's not fun. But, there's a level of bravery, I think, that you feel, or confidence maybe that you feel after going through an experience like this. And maybe it's because we walk into this not really knowing, and we have to trust the
Mm,
spirit, Mother Ayahuasca. We have to trust that we're going to come out of the other side of this okay. And for a lot of people, this scares the shit out of them,
mm,
right? It scares the hell out of them to even think that they're not in control for that period of time. And I was never really scared. I was never, I wasn't worried. I wasn't really scared. I wanted the result.
mm-hmm.
And I knew that I needed the result.
Yeah. We were given 3 questions. So we had 3 intentions for ceremony. I don't know if yours was the same, but the first question was, show me who I've become. Show me who I've become. And when you were given that answer and you acknowledged it, then you moved on to merge me with my soul at all costs. So merge me with my soul at all costs. And then the third question was, heal my heart. And once you'd completed those 3 questions, then you could say, who am I put in this world to be? What am I in this world to do? Now, we had went specifically with intentions about how to elevate our business to the next level. So within Next Level Life, we have like 3 stages. So we have Become Unshakable, then we have Go Quantum, and the stage that Rachel and I are working on right now is what we call Transcendence. So tapping into that higher consciousness. Now, I don't know about you, but I was given really clear downloads, and this is where I would really encourage entrepreneurs to try this experience. So I was given really clear downloads on where my business is going, where I had to work, what our social media strategy is, and the outcome of the work that we're doing. It was crystal clear, and that was one of our if you go there willing to do the work on yourself first and foremost, but also with a clear business intention, then you can have incredible results in life and in business.
Just have to be open for the result, right? You have to be open for the medicine to do. And I got to tell you, and then we'll wrap up. But I literally, and this is no joke, honest to God, I literally had to say to myself, or Mother Ayahuasca, almost like a prayer. And it was, I shut my eyes and I'm like, Mother Ayahuasca, I need you to come into my body and do whatever it is you need to do. I repeated this over and over. And the second that I let go was when the medicine started working. And it was like in the second I took it back, it stopped. It was bizarre. It was literally like an on-off switch. And so, and that happened 3 or 4 times after the first time I let go, because I would take it back. And then I would sit there and I'm like, well, what happened? Oh, Corey, you stepped back in. You didn't let the medicine work. You didn't let Mother Ayahuasca do what she came here to do. So stop trying. And this is literally the dialogue I had with myself. It was bizarre.
This is the message for life. And this is a really good place to end this interview. But this is the message for life. It's when we have absolute certainty about what we're here to do. It's when we have unwavering belief in ourselves. And then when we're willing to surrender. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by tapping into the unseen forces, which is our spiritual practice. It's when we live life through celebration, and when we do those things that scare us, such as feeling. So when we surrender and instead focus on those things, well, guess what? That's when you see the results. Just like with ayahuasca, that's when you see the results in life and in business.
I agree. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on again. I really, really enjoyed this. I'm so happy to hear about your journey. And I have a feeling in 2021, I'm going to be going and taking a third journey, because you know what, at the end of the day, this is going to be part of my life, I think, because I want to keep getting better. I want to dig deeper. I want to become more.
Yes, the best version of you. I love that. Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Jessica, can you tell everybody where they can find you really quick?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram at Jessica McLaren, and my website is jessicamclaren.com.
Fantastic. We'll put it all in the show notes. Thank you very much.
See you
All
soon.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.